I always called all of my lodge advisors when I was a kid, I called them by their first name. That was one of the cool things about being in the OA. I don't know if that's still a tradition in this lodge, but I can tell you that people like Don Craig and Larry Roseman and Richard Four, who probably most of you've never heard before, but
I have.
When they were lodge advisors, they insisted on it, and so do I. So, and even more important is that I was at one point a member of Osceola Lodge for 19 years. I took my ordeal in another lodge at Wamagasa Lodge up in Nashville, Tennessee. Came to Fort Myers and got my brotherhood in 1980, and then I was one of the 3 first vigils that had been in 6 years. And when I got my vigil in 82, myself, another lodge officer, Danny Arters, and Don Craig, and the 3 of us took our vigil together. We were the first 3 that had received their vigil since 1976. So that was a big deal at that particular point for Osceola Lodge, because at that particular point, Osceola Lodge had an active membership of about 25 people. And we would have our lodge weekends, and at those lodge weekends, we would induct anywhere from 50 to 100 boys to take their ordeal. Everybody would come to the ordeal, everybody would get their flat, and then we'd never see them again except at other scouting events, because we didn't have any interesting events like fall fellowships or vigil honor ceremonies or any of that cool kind of stuff. And I'll tell you how this relates to the patches in a moment. I'll give you a little history first. So in 1980, when I became lodge chief, we went up and visited Tippesall Lodge. So kind of funny how it kind of comes back, because now I am in Tippesall Lodge. And in 1980, we took our LEC up to Tippesall Lodge to get trained. And that was really a bad thing at that particular point, because the powers that be didn't want the lodge to grow. They weren't real keen on that idea of us doing something outside of work projects at camp. And as a matter of fact, at that particular point, and I'll show you the first 3 flaps here that kind of go along with that. Everybody's familiar with the F1, F meaning flap, 1 meaning first, right? And that had a twill background. And then after that, there's what's known as the S1, S meaning solid embroidered, 1 again meaning first flap. These were the first 2 flaps of the lodge for the first 10 years. When I took my brotherhood was the last time they offered this patch. And the way that they offered it was, when you got in, took your ordeal, you got this patch. And when enough people had that, they said, hey, now we want to do a brotherhood patch. So they said, we'll make the solid embroidered patch the brotherhood patch. So for a while, both patches were being offered, and that's why there's a lot more F1s out there than there are S1s. Well, then along came the S2. And that was about the time when I joined the lodge. So understand, when I joined the lodge in 1978, the lodge was only 10 years old. In 10 years, it had 3 patches, period, and 2 neckerchiefs. And that was it. When the S2 came along, we kept that same restriction, because that's what the restriction had been all previous years. You got 1 per event that you went to. Well, the LEC got a little creative, and I was lodge chief of that LEC, so we made sure it got creative, because we wanted more, and we wanted to trade patches. So we said, if we have more events, then we could get 1 in any event we went to. And so that meant call-outs, of which there were 3. Right? That meant if we did ceremonies at camp for the lodge, then we could buy a flap for that. So we kind of started breaking up that only 1 patch thing, because at that particular time, the guys would literally sew Velcro on the back of their patch and transfer it from uniform to uniform so that they could have patches for trading. because what, you'd get maybe 4 in your life, maybe 5. So that's kind of started making things kind of grow a little bit. Down in, who's here is from Naples? Cool, okay. So there's a guy down in Naples that is a longtime scouter by the name of Don Cahill. And Don talked to me about designing another flap. By the way, those 3 flaps, we don't know who designed them. We have no idea. We do know that this got designed with these colors to match the current console strip. Because the console strip at that time had, you've probably seen the one with the bear on it. Okay, so the console strip with the bear, they wanted to color coordinate. I thought that was pretty cool. And as a matter of fact, the first Lodge t-shirt that we did in the 80s was also green and gold. And I have, I'll show you the decal that we used to do. Anyway, so Don Cahill said, you know what? All these patches are just kind of plain. Let's get fancier. Let's do some more stuff. And so I kind of took that idea to task, and we added the 3 chiquis to the patch here to represent what at that time was 3 chapters. And at that time, they were alligator billy bow legs and palm. Was it royal palm or palm? I forget, Gary. No, it was, well, it became Micanopy, but at the time it was palm. And then that particular chapter decided that they wanted to have an Indian name like the other chapters, and so they became Micanopy chapter. So there's a little piece of history. And now that's Tucasimapo chapter, right? Yeah. Woo! All right. Okay, so we did that, and then we also added this little fleur-de-lis with an arrow. That was specifically designed so that Vigil Honor members could put their Vigil pin on their patch. That was the whole intent of that. So if you were Ordeal or Brotherhood, then you had your arrow on there, and if you were a Vigil Honor member, you were supposed to put your Vigil triangle on it in that particular patch. Then came the 75th anniversary of the Boy Scouts. And what was really cool at that particular time about the 75th anniversary of the Boy Scouts was there were lots of patches being made all across Scouting. And I was actually away at college at that particular point, and my brother was very active in the lodge doing ceremonies and being a lodge and chapter officer. So he designed this patch. So here's a little piece of trivia. He designed the patch, and he put me as Osceola because he made the outfit of the Osceola pole in the canoe. He modeled that outfit on me, so that's supposed to be me in the canoe there. Nice. Then came the 75th anniversary of the Order of the Arrow, and the symbol that they had, maybe some of you guys have seen, especially if you went to NOAC this year. You saw the 100th anniversary, the really cool, you guys have it on the back of your t-shirts, that's a great logo. Well, that particular year, they used a turtle with the 1915. There's also a 75th anniversary award that some of us wear that has that turtle in the 1915 on it. And so we took that and we made a very simple flap. Now, one of the things that happened at that time when you do patches was you'd send a design and then the patch company would do whatever the heck they felt like. They rarely followed the patch design exactly. The original, this Osceola was a lot more detailed and it was bigger. They kind of gave him a shrunken head. And as you can see, the very first flap turned out not too bad. But each run that they did, they got a little bit sloppier. The fleur-de-lis isn't as crisp. The detail on the embroidery isn't crisp. His face kind of starts to melt. So that was the 75th anniversary patch. Okay. The council also had its 25th anniversary somewhere very close to that. And we did a special, this was the first flap that we ordered that there was a monetary amount attached to it. So there was a certain amount for the silver mylar, and there was a certain amount for the gold mylar. The problem was, is the lodge, even though it had grown, not everybody was willing to start doling out that extra money. So eventually, that price on these patches dropped, and they became quite available. Well, the lodge really liked that design, and by the way, that design is from John Vinton, who drew a life picture of Osceola after he had been captured. And so the lodge really liked that idea. They liked the scheme. The background of this is, you know, if you guys have ever been, those of you who've been to Camp Miles, you know that when you go out in the woods, you see the big vista of pine trees and the open fields. So that's why we did that background like that. So we decided that we would go ahead and make the flap only with the royal blue border. Well, again, the patch company does whatever they want once you send the design, and they shrink the design again, and so that's why this patch is smaller. And we actually did 2 loom runs. This patch is fairly rare because we had 1 loom run that went to the lodge, and then there was another loom that we split the loom in half and gave it to all of the districts to hand out to all of the scoutmasters and the troops. So what you saw was that patch, they're very rare because some of those scoutmasters got the patch and then we never saw them again. Now they didn't go to any lodge. The idea was that they'd come to start doing stuff in the lodge, but didn't necessarily work out that way. So that was, we changed the colors again. We changed to the green when the council strip changed. You guys are familiar with the Panther one? Well, originally we had done the Panther patch that you guys have on now. That was done for the 1989 Jamboree, and it was a white border, and we had done that patch kind of like you do Jamboree JSPs now, okay? It's something a little bit different than the bear. But the council liked it. The Panther was in the news all the time. That Panther license plate, not the one that's now, but there was a white one that had a Panther standing on it back then. That had come out. So the Panthers were in the news, so it made perfect sense since all the Panther sightings were within the confines of the Southwest Florida Council. It made sense to go to the Panther. And so we changed the border to green to kind of, again, to match the council strip. So we cured that for a few years. And then, of course, we had the merger of the Sunnyland Council and the Southwest Florida Council. And to commemorate that, this particular patch that we did, my favorite patch of all the patches that Oceola County Lodge had done was the host flap from 1984. I love the background that had been done on it. Is that around here someplace? Is the host flap wrong? No? No. Well, I just thought that was a great design, so we incorporated that.
I think that's it back there, isn't it, in the corner?
Well, that's the Osceola version.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Oh, okay.
So really, literally, I took it off the patch and put it on that patch. And then again, we changed the Osceola face for the first time to what's known as the Curtis painting of Osceola, which, from an artifact point of view, is the most accurate picture of Osceola, supposedly, even better than the Catlin painting. A year later, the LEC decided that they wanted to put the sunrise traditional design of Oceola County onto the patch, and so that's where that design ended up at that point. For the Jamboree, 1997, this design is you guys may have seen the activity patches here, which are the beaded bandolier pouches. So we decided that the Jamboree flap would go with that. So that's what that is. That's a bandolier pouch and strap, part of the strap for the Jamboree. The next patch Now that was the last patch that personally I designed for Osceola Lodge, was that one there. So, in my 19 years of being in the lodge, we've gone from only having 3 to having from here all the way to here. Now that's not so bad, right? If you guys know about Oceola Lodge, they like come out with a new flap every month. So that wasn't too bad in 20 years, right? Okay. So another brother of the lodge, Mike Brown, who has some similar interest in Seminole history as I did, Mike kind of stepped in when I moved away in '97 and started doing the lodge flaps at that time. Mike incorporated the chickees as a patchwork, again to represent the chapters that were in place at that particular time. And the lodge, I guess, is how it was set up. And that was the first time that the lodge had Ordeal, Brotherhood, and Vigil flaps. And then Nashville came down and said, you can't do that anymore. And I think, if I remember right, that's when they changed back the colors, just to one flap, right? One color scheme.
Yeah. But it didn't do it. We did it 3 years.
Yeah, right.
3 times as a Brotherhood or the Vigil.
Okay.
Then we changed.
Then you changed it. All right.
No more.
This flap I always thought was a very interesting flap because what it really is a redraw of this flap, right? But a little similar, but same guy, flipped him and added another chickee to the mix to add for the 4th chapter. And they did the arrow and the fleur-de-lis also. This is a really unique flap that they did for the 2001 Jamboree because it was the first time that we didn't really have like a Seminole motif. This particular amulet that's shown on here is a Calusa amulet that was found down on Marco Island back in 1898. So that was the first time where we kind of took something completely different that didn't have anything to do with the Seminole Indians and actually kind of harkened back to the original lodge of this area, which was Calusa Lodge. And then Mike also did a couple neat things. He added the scrolls and the beadwork and the kind of the patchwork so that it incorporated current Seminole history, old Seminole history, and pre-Seminole history all into one patch. So that was kind of a neat idea. I can't tell you a whole lot about these. Don't know a lot about those. I understand they were drawn by Dr. Behringer. At least that's what I read in the description. So that's about all I can tell you. You can see, though, that there's a connection between this flap and this flap and this flap. So it kind of took 2 flaps in the lodge's history, put them together, and added it.
The original was from an old design from Rick Overmeyer.
Well, I got to that one. I got to that one. That's the next one.
That was the next one.
Oh, forgot. I skipped one here. NOAC 96. This flat here. Can you guys see this one? That was the first time this symbol appeared. Now, when we drew it up, we didn't have a name for it. All right. The first time, as a matter of fact, the first patch that has that on here is
Further down, I believe.
To your left.
Right there, left side. You're standing in front of it.
that one?
Yep.
No, that's not it.
No, the orbs are right
There it
there.
is. There it is. This is it.
Oh, okay.
This is a fall fellowship, and this was designed by the guy who is currently the scout executive in Columbus, Georgia. But he was the lodge vice chief at that time, Anthony Berger. And Anthony drew up that design to copy the shell work that was done by the Calusa Indians. Okay? All right, so here's the thing about this. Now we've named this the orb, by the way, in case you don't know that. Okay? You guys know it's called the orb? Orb? That's what we call it, the orb. All right, the reason why we call it the orb is because it's this round-looking thing. And it's 3-dimensional also. If you don't know it, you don't know that it's 3-dimensional. And a lot of the old shell work that was done by the Indians who lived in the southeast there was a lot of meaning to the shell work, and this design does too.